maybe a little bit about what your experience was, or what brought you into learning more about chakras and energy today?
So I'm had some life-changing things happen last year.
Yay.
And some good, some bad. So I'm feeling like I've got a new beginning.
Yes.
I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer last year, but it was in stage 1, so only had to do radiation, got through that. Just starting to feel like I'm paying more attention to
everything,
health and energy, and what I can be doing to make my life better.
Wonderful. Beautiful. So I'll digress for a minute. So welcome as a full spirit, full self. It's so beautiful to have you in this state, sitting in this conversation. And forgive me, I've never had cancer, so as I talk about this, I'm not being able to put myself completely in your shoes, but it's one of my truths in being somebody who kind of grew up in the energy field, and so at 5 years old I was diagnosed with migraines, and which that's a 40-year-old woman, right, diagnosis. And so migraines, as a medical intuitive would tell you, is the fight of the seat of the soul. So it's the fight between the left and the right brain. So and this typically happens to people, women more so, between 40 and 47, which is the last line, and I'll draw a chakra chart up here in a minute, but it's a 7 by, I'll draw it now. So this is a chart I work with a lot when working with chakras. It's a 7 by 7 chart, right? So we've got our 7 chakras, and so basically what happens, and so in psychology terms, so you've got root chakra, and how new are the names of the chakras to you?
I know, I've read a little bit online, yeah.
Okay, so you've got these chakras, and they will create this chart of life experiences, you could say. And so we say in energy terms that a child is born, so even before conception, we're starting to develop the root chakra. As soon as the soul starts to integrate with the developing fetus, I'm going to say about 3 months, this is all here. So about 3 months before the baby's born, the soul will start to integrate with that. Hi, welcome.
Sorry I'm late.
Oh no, please come on in. So about 3 months before the baby's born, the soul will integrate with that fetus, and so that starts the developmental process of the classic root chakra. And then as we move through life, and we're just going to put a number value. Of course, this is different for every human being, but in classical terms, you could say this is the first year of life, second year of life, third year of life, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so throughout the entire platform here, you get to 7 times 7, 49. 49. And so at this stage, they say we're supposed to have the complete kind of integration of human self, or what we would call soul self, with high self, or the purpose of the being, and be able to start to be and live in full, complete channel. And I'll go through all of the indications and what makes up each of the chakras, and how you can see how that would create a complete human experience to then be able to, what do we say in our 50s, right? When do people have midlife crisis? Right around the 50s, when they start to reflect back and go, who am I, what have I done with my life? And this is when men go out and buy their Porsches, women, either quit the job or quit the husband or whatever it is, right? And change the complete life to have a new experience, because they've realized that they've kind of been possibly numb to a lot of what was happening here, and you one day turn around and look and say, what have I done with my life? So this is a classic example of a 7 by 7 chakra chart. And so developmentally, as we go along. I said in the beginning that I had migraines at 5, which typically migraines and the seat of the soul, the pineal gland is where the seat of the soul is. It's our antenna to what we could say would be our divine purpose, right? So when we're a clear channel, when everything in the chakra channel, all of this is in clear alignment, we're able to bring in constantly and live constantly in a very connected way. These are all the kind of energetic things that go along with chakra theory. And so at 5, I started to move into this. And so I started fighting what you would call human self with high self or energy self or divine self-purpose. And so at a young age, I started to do this. But throughout any individual's process, it's, hi, welcome. It's a belief through medical intuition that we take on different physical vibrations. For me, migraines, possibly cancer, tumors, diabetes, whatever it is, that can then energetically reflect some of the things that are going on in chakra theory. So we'll start right back. Can I just get maybe, since we had a few new guests, jump in? Where you are with chakras, maybe what you came for. Are you just here to open up and experience and to dive in more deeply, or do you come with some chakra knowledge already? Way back. So open, just here to listen? Yeah? Okay. And for you?
Open, I know a little bit.
Okay, great, perfect. So I'll then I will get right into. So this, what I've drawn here, is through one of the professions that works very closely and closest to kind of doctors would be psychology. So in classic psychology, Jung was a big advocate of chakra theory and did a lot of his later work, Carl Jung, in exploring chakras and how it works in his terms with the collective unconscious of humanity. And it's interesting to me, Jung, in all of his, I think he wrote a book called something with Kundalini and the Awakening or something. It was one of his last published books, and where he really dove into chakra theory. And he, even though chakras are energetic vortices, right, that reside within the energetic blueprint of our body, he went through and gave validation on how the root chakra was a real thing, even though it's an energetic vortice in the body. The sacral chakra, he went through and defined how every single one of these up into the third eye chakra could be validated and were real things. But then when he got to the crown chakra, he said, this one's spiritual and we can't prove this. And so he went all the way through his life and basically had achieved a level of understanding up to the third eye chakra, but wasn't quite ready to validate the crown chakra, even though all of them are energetic in context. So we'll go right through and maybe draw out what the chakras look like. So in my experience, when I was young, I was saying at 5, I started kind of battling my own energetic process. And I was born into this life with the ability to be very clairvoyant, if you could see, clear seeing. And early on started fighting this and ended up manifesting or developing migraines as a very young child. And then which turned into insomnia in my teens. I was, I think, 13 when I started to become completely no sleep at night. I think I'd sleep from like 6 in the morning to 7 in the morning right before school. And so I was having a complete fight in my left and right brain, trying to understand everything that I could perceive outside of me and think cognitively, yet have no real validation for in my physical life. And so this led me then, when I was 16, to pick up my first book on chakras. And chakras became a way for me to understand everything that was going on with me and really tap more deeply and intuitively into my own processes and what was happening. So at 23, I wrote my first book on chakras and my own healing process, moving and working through the chakras. And how I did that was to go back to this. Basically, every chakra has a physical, an emotional, and then you could say emotional, mental, and then a spiritual attribute. And so should I break it down even further and go into where these are and how it's made up in the body, or do you guys know that? Should I get into the very basics of where root chakra is? So root chakra is in the anus area, down in the groin area, extends down through the bottoms of the feet and then connects down into the earth. And then sacral chakra is right around this area. Solar plexus chakra is the abdomen area. Heart chakra is here. Throat chakra, third eye chakra, and crown chakra. And so what we say in energetic terms, and people who can see clearly the blueprint or the energy, the aura of the body, will tell you that the chakras basically are constantly moving, spinning. And what this does, in my understanding of how this works and makes up our reality, is basically the chakras all tap into different dimensional realities. So basically, if you believe that we're not just one birth and death life experience, that we have multiple lives that we've not only lived in the past, but have future timelines and multiple incarnations as a soul in different bodies and forms, then what happens is these chakras are basically the energy centers that are spinning into conscious awareness, the totality of our soul self. I know that's a big sentence to say, but does that resonate? Does that resonate with everybody a little bit? So what happens then, as somebody who reads energy, so I read people's energetic fields, what I do is I tap into your multidimensional self. So if you were to come to me and ask me to do an energetic reading for you, basically I don't need to see you, I don't need to talk to you, all I do is tap in with your name, and I will basically move into each of your chakras and see what's presenting itself, and I'll do what's called an Akashic reading based off of what you're experiencing now in this life, based off of possibly where you're blocked, repeating patterns, having cycles of perpetual energy flowing in a specific way through each of these chakra centers. And so this is how I start to break down the chakras and use them to not only read other people, but for yourselves, when you're empowered and start to know how these chakra centers bring energy and awareness into your lives, you can use these certain terms to start to see how certain cycles, patterns, and things are playing out in your life, and maybe where we could say some of these windows, I like to see these all as windows in our chakra column, are blocked. So let me just show you. So this is how I see a person's. I'm actually an artist. I do art. I do intuitive art. You're not going to tell this at all from here. So as a channel, so here's crown chakra. They say crown chakra resides about 6 to 8 feet above the head. So the crown chakra to me is what creates this channel. Everything, and so it's hard when we talk and when I draw this in a linear way, it looks like something's above and below, but basically what happens is the heart center here is in most energetic practices the most important part of this entire vessel. The heart center is what connects us to all time, all space. The heart center is what connects us to the past, the future, all of our infinite possibilities. They call this the fourth dimension. It's the fourth chakra. It's also connected to the fourth dimension, which in the fourth dimension is where there's no such thing as time-space. So it's where everything's possible. And so here, the heart chakra basically becomes a channel that can clearly connect us to the channel of all of our spinning chakras. And so the goal in chakra theory is to have harmonized, open, and balanced or still chakras. When we can get in and relieve so chakra in essence is a spinning vortice center. And so basically in essence when we can get in and become still, clear, and balanced and in harmony with each of these centers, it creates a completely clear channel where everything that we are, everything we've been, everything we can be, becomes one still moment of existence that basically creates our reality. And so this is the enlightened human in chakra theory, just using chakra theory here. And so to me, what I see, each of these vortice centers, root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown, each of these chakra centers have attributes and how would you say it? Like archetypal programs that play out in our everyday life. And so root chakra in the physical, so our root chakra is all about family, which would be family foundation, what supports us, what we're working from, our stability, everything we're grounded into in this life. And it's all about that family or that foundation, and then about grounding, the ability to ground into it, and then the ability to be present with it. So as a physical attribute, the root chakra is family and foundation. And then the emotional is about grounding. And we'll get into this more. So sacral chakra, sacral is your orange, roots your red. So sacral chakra in the physical is all about relationships. And in the emotional, it's about your passion. And solar plexus, which is yellow, your abdomen. In physical, it's about the authentic self. And emotional is about your willpower. So heart chakra, physical, is going to be about the collective, or when we're looking at this in a very individualized way, the community that surrounds you. One thing I'm not good at is spelling too, so apologies if you're seeing transverse letters here. Emotional is about, so where are we, heart chakra? Emotional is about compassion. Your throat chakra physically is about your voice. And your emotional is about self-expression. Your third eye chakra, physical, is about your mind. And your emotional is about your intuition. Crown chakra, physical, is about your higher self. And emotional is about your purpose. Okay, and so every single one of these, so we have a physical existence here, and then we have the emotional existence. So every column, the sacral chakra, so again, were you both here when I talked about this chart can be used to describe the 49 years of life. So in psychology terms, when they talk about chakras, basically you can go through each year of life developing more fully your expression or the archetypal expression of each of these chakras as it meets. So root chakra in the physical meeting root chakra in the emotional is year one of life. And then root chakra in the physical here meeting sacral chakra. So second year of life is all about how you can ground into then the relationships, the family, what's happening there. So then grounding into root chakra and you're developing your authentic self. 3-year-olds, right? What do we say about 3-year-olds? is how the crazy 2s and 3s, how you start to develop that personality. And so how you're grounding into that, and then heart chakra. So this is how this chart works. So each year of life, root chakra, we're developing here, and then meeting its different expression here. Then we go into the sacral, and we start to develop this years 7 through 14. And then we keep going until we hit, supposedly, the clear channel that we become at 49. So I mean, this is, again, generalization of kind of how these energies and how we cultivate these energies throughout our lives. And so basically how I use the chakras to move through life is everything that we create through this column here. So what happens for the energetic human is, as we move through life and start to become more centered or grounded in our own energy, and realizing, as soon as you become conscious, right, is what we say. Of course, everybody's always conscious, but as soon as you choose to step into a conscious life and realize it's not just about me anymore, but it's about me and how I'm expressing my purpose and how I'm living in connection to what I could consider my purpose or what I'm here for, right? So as soon as we start to question that question of what am I here for, what's my purpose, how am I here to serve not only myself but humanity and everybody else, right? As soon as we have that self-reflective quality, what happens is everything around us starts to organize in a way that shows us where we're repeating perpetual cycles, where these chakras could be quote unquote blocked, right? We say hypo spinning chakra or hyper spinning chakra. And so anytime the chakra is spinning, it's creating some kind of perpetual cycle, perpetual experience in our life. And so when we talk about vibration and what could be coming through, so root chakra typically deals with the family, being able to ground into your life, being able to be present and engaged. And so the shadow side of the root chakra, I know I'm going all over the board. This is in like 20 years of my life experience. I know I'm just trying to spew everything on you guys at once, so apologies. So the things we look for in being engaged in this clear channel, right? So the goal, would you all agree with me that the goal is to be a clear channel so we're not blocked by anything that's holding us back from living out our full, authentic, purpose-filled expression, right? So the goal then is to be living in complete harmony and balance with family, foundation, being able to feel comfortable and grounded in every expression of life. So this is hard for some people. So the shadow side of this is fear. So anytime we come up, so the shadow side will be an emotional attachment, an emotion that's a lower vibration emotion that would block us from constantly being comfortable in our own family matrix, right? A lot of us come into this life with heavy family matrix stuff that we have to go through. Or being comfortable in the foundation that we've created, feeling stable, protected, a part of a foundation. No matter what, right? A lot of times people choose to leave the family because it wasn't supportive of who they wanted to become. And sometimes if we don't have a supportive family, we fear, though, if we were to leave them, that we wouldn't be supported, that we wouldn't have a foundation, we wouldn't be stable in this life. So you see how this kind of creates this first platform, this first level. And the big thing that inhibits a lot of us from breaking some of these perpetual cycles or blocks that happen in the root chakra is fear. So fear and moving forward. And so when I do energetic readings for people, again, a lot of them are distant. And so I'll kind of close my eyes and clairvoyantly see a body. And I'll start to see, what's going on. Where do we need to focus? Where are they maybe blocking energy? Anytime something happens, they show me people's knees or feet and they'll show me like knees bending, not bending. It's a fear of moving forward, right? So typically if they're down in this area for me, I know that we're dealing with root chakra stuff, and then I'll start to dive deeper. Are we talking about their family? Are we talking about the inability to be grounded and present in life, right? A lot of times we choose to, instead of dealing with our foundation and what's happening in our present moment, we choose to just detach from that. And so shadow side of this is fear. And then, so shadow, when we talk shadow side of chakras, the shadow of a chakra typically is, when I see it, or I feel like it's a seed. If you're talking about a whole beach of sand, it's like a grain of sand that lies at the center of this. And something somewhere along your journey, along this developmental chart, let's say there's a shadow side of the root chakra, somewhere around this, typically what happens is the first 7 years of life, when this chakra is really becoming empowered, you're starting to move into the expression, full expression of being able to be in the family unit, grounding into life, feeling stable. So think of any abusive children going through abuse, and how they could have a fear, a shadow side, because in the first few years of life, being able to really feel safe in a home with a family, having a strong foundation. And so a lot of children from families with abuse have an underlining fear in a lot of the things, and really try and create a solid, thick, stable foundation so that they don't have to fear. So basically here, the shadow side of the chakra, to me, when I go in and I see, or I get a read that somebody's got a shadow archetype playing out, we have to go back and see. It could be expressing itself. Let's say I'm talking to a 70-year-old man, and fear comes up in the as a shadow of the root chakra. He could be living or expressing fear in his current life, but typically what happens with shadow side is something triggered us way back when, and we started to create patterns or archetypes in our life to protect ourselves so that we didn't have to feel that fear. And what happens to that little tiny grain of sand, that fear that initiated somewhere in the early life, what happens is over time we do things to protect ourselves so that we control. So a big thing to protect ourselves from feeling fear, we try and control every situation, right? So this is how chakras work. There are physical, emotional, mental attributes, and then they end up creating themselves in kind of pendulum swings of what could happen in the life, and how we protect or step into this and own it and allow ourselves to move through the perpetual cycles that are kind of creating these realities in our life. So again, the chakras to me are basically creating your entire existence of life, right? If you believe that this is all just a hologram that we've stepped into and are living of, it's all just vibration, right? And so basically what is happening through our core, pulling everything that we have been, will be, everything, our totality of our soul existence into this one 3D human expression, this physical moment of Genesee, of Jill, right? And of guest 1 and guest 2, I didn't get your names. This is what basically will start to create the reality of which we're stepping into. And so the goal, again, is to relieve ourselves of the spin of the perpetual patterns of holding on to any of this energy, so we can just be a clear, balanced, harmonized channel living our authentic soul expression. So root chakra is shadow side, could be fear. And again, the positives are family, grounding, and being present, okay, being in the present moment. So sacral chakra, so here, no big surprise, relationships, guilt, right? So who's the only person, or what's the only thing, right, that can really make you feel guilt? So it's all about manipulation and guilt right here in the sacral chakra. So, and then how we start to figure out I'll get into that in a minute if I have time. So, sacral chakra, again, the healthy expression of sacral chakra is passion, relationships, and we're talking one-on-one relationships. So it could be mother and daughter, it could be husband-wife, it can be boss and employee, right? So it's a specific one-on-one, you interacting with another energetic human being. And so what happens here, and again, so if we look at the years 7 to 14, right? Where does all this bullying happen? Where does dominance and manipulation really start to happen? Where do we really start to self-identify in our relationships? It's this whole age range here. I have two sons. One is 6. Oh, 7. This is 8, sorry. One is 6 and one is 7. And they're both still in their, like, totally present, grounded, just, they are who they are. I have a niece and a nephew that are here. And the nephew is actually 9, or when he was 9, started dealing with the bullying. So we start to actually look at this interconnected world of how other beings are affecting us, right? So kids in this expression are living themselves or trying to figure out how to live themselves. As we start to get here, we start to really see how relationships are creating this reality that we're existing in, and we start to identify and label ourselves through the interactions we start having with others. And then hopefully by the time we get out of here, 15, you have to do my math in a minute. So as we start to get out of here, this is the authentic self. So these 3 here, these 3 chakras make up what we call the lower self, the human, basically. We are born into this world with these 3 chakras, very active. The physical, they call it the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body. We come in with complete access to all of this. And so from 15 to 21 is when they say we're really developing solar plexus chakra and that complete self-identity. Every 21-year-old, you know, right, knows exactly who they are and what they're worth. So back to our shadow side. So guilt. Am I saying this in a way that's meaningful for you guys so far? Do I need to slow down or talk deeper about anything yet? Okay. Just give me a I'm drowning sign. I'll try and pull back. So sacral chakra, again, so from 7 to 14, when we're developing these relationships and starting to understand ourselves more fully through the eyes of other people, this is where we can start to learn to be the martyr. We can learn that when we manipulate people, we get what we want. We learn passive-aggressive tendencies, right? So think about it, 7 to 14-year-olds, this is completely what they're immersed in, this whole interaction. But so the things that we learn, and again, how our parents treat us between those ages. So what's happening to you between those ages too, with not only parents but teachers. And did you play the smart kid? What roles, what archetypes did you take on to try and get through the world back then? And what happens is, so if you're somebody who suffers from guilt or manipulation, if you find yourself, manipulation's a big one in sacral chakra. I tend to see this. So guilt is when we feel guilt. So all of these emotions, when we get triggered by these emotions, anytime in life, right? Anytime we feel emotion is such a beautiful thing. We have our physical body. Now we'll go into the energetic field. We have our physical body. Outside of the physical body, you have the emotional body, and then you have the mental body, and then you have the spiritual body. And so what happens with energy transference is basically we're constantly running from, if you think of spiritual body being connected to the all that is, the purpose, the high self of you, what happens is we get downloads that keep us on our path, and then it hits the mental field and we start to think certain things. This could be either intuition or the mind, depending on how we take it, left or right brain. And then as we start to think things, then we start to feel things. When we start to feel over what we're thinking, we're bringing it more into the physical reality of our now existence. And then what happens from there is then it can manifest into this physical form. So this is how illness can come through. If we're resisting, right, illness can then manifest in the physical body. This is how any great thing can come through. It's all positive. It's all, there's nothing positive or negative. It's all just energy as it comes through. So basically what happens in our emotional body, if we hold on to emotion, this is where we can start to get dysfunction, and this is where we say things can start to block and create shadow side or blocks in these chakras that leave us not a clear channel to just be a flow and move in the flow and moving through this kind of co-created reality we're living in. So basically what happens, sacral chakra comes in, and anytime we take energy, and it's typically, again, through these one-on-one relationships, and we start to feel this guilt, then this can lead to some of this block in this emotional body. So guilt, let's see. Gosh, I haven't taught this in a while. Let me see if I can run through the emotions. Let me write all the emotions first, and then I'll see if I can give you the lesson of each emotion. Fear, guilt. So the next is solar plexus chakra. So the shadow side of the solar plexus chakra is, so let me write, as they come through. Oh my goodness, I'm being blocked to solar plexus chakra. Oh goodness. Oh my goodness, now I'm being blocked to all of them. Deceit? I didn't spell that right. I must be going through a shadow side block of the solar plexus chakra. Deceit, grief, guilt. Oh, shame. Haha. Sorry. That would come through like that. Okay, so again, solar plexus chakra being all about our authentic self, right? Who we are at the core. And then the willpower, right? Because to be and live the truest expression of yourself all the time requires a lot of willpower, right? A lot of strength of will to constantly be and facilitate that. And so what happens, again, so as we move through this stage, if we did this stage in a healthy, happy, harmonized way, and don't carry much guilt over who we are and what we're learning in this life here, as we transition to this existence, 15 to 21, we start to learn and move more into who am I, right? So 15, we're just about ready to start driving. And so we really start to step into this independence. And so then you step into independence in each of the emotional attributes of each chakra. And so as we start to create this, what happens is we create the healthy identity that takes us through, or we can start to feel shame over some of the things that we do and experience. And so shame as a human, I heard one of our, I think Dr. Holly Timberlake, who's one of our psychologists here who talked about shame being one of the hardest emotional archetypes that we can actually take on as humans, because so many times we're shamed into society. As society, you can't do that, you can't be that. Why are you being this full expression of yourself? You're not supposed to act that way. Business, family, relation, whatever it is, right? So as a human, we're constantly being told, possibly, that by living the full expression of ourselves, it's either too much for other people or it's not good enough for other people. So shame, and an interesting thing to me in chakra theory, I kind of tried to tell you earlier, is we separate these into three quadrants, right? 3 sections. So the lower 3 chakras are what we call the low self. And these all come in completely activated to each of these energetic bodies, which we call the aura, the physical, the emotional, mental, and spiritual body. So we come in completely in attachment to our emotional body, our mental body, and our physical body. We're very clear. We run through emotions very easy. We run through our mental fields very easily. We have complete access. As we get into the heart chakra, this is kind of the bridge between low self and high self. And so the heart chakra here, again, saying it's something that's the gateway, the bridge. This is something we have to develop. This starts to tap us into the spiritual body. Here, they call this, have you guys heard the term causal body or oversoul at all in any of your study? So basically, the heart chakra here, because it connects to the infinite potentials of all of our soul existences, everything we've ever been, we have to, and this is where consciousness comes in, when we choose to go on the journey of understanding not only this life, but the totality of my soul existence, this is the shift that we move into. And so any spiritual practice, if you listen to meditations, if you follow any spiritual teachers out there, it's all about getting heart-centered. It's all about getting into this heart space, right? Through the heart space is where all things reside, where all kind of potential resides. And so this is fourth dimension, so this basically connects us to everything outside of what we came with, the human self, the mind, the emotions, and the physical body. When we tap into heart chakra, we start to tap into kind of the more, what you could call gifts and talents. Like, this is where we start to become empaths. We can feel. We don't know why we feel a certain way, but we can feel. So it's not mental anymore. We don't know why we're feeling certain things, but we're feeling. This is where we can start to meditate, and with closed eyes meditations, we can start to see or get instincts, clairvoyant kind of knowings of things. We start to tune into our clairaudience more. So this is where all of these kind of extrasensory abilities come in. And so heart chakra, okay, 22 plus 7. 28. So basically, around this age range, and this is interesting, anybody into astrology, this is where the Saturn return comes in. So I don't know much about astrology, but listening to our astrologer here, the biggest transit in your life happens right here, but I think you're 28 years old when your Saturn return happens, and it's basically every 28 years Saturn moves in a full cycle in your system, and so it basically means you change into a whole new person. So after your Saturn return, you basically are living a whole new existence. There's like a whole new stepping into and owning, and it's so interesting. This relates to chakra theory, where here we're given the opportunity to step into this complete potential of all we've ever been. And so what happens to block this, the shadow side, that potential of what could be coming through that we didn't deal with or we blocked ourselves from, instead of, again, I like to say these are windows to the soul, windows to the high self, our full potential. All of these to me are windows, and when each window's open, we're a clear channel in this vision, or in this version of ourselves. We're a complete clear channel to be moving through all of these energetic cycles continuously all the time. But what happens is sometimes when we have an encounter here, throat chakra, so we're trying to live, so throat chakra, the emotional expression of throat chakra is, let's just say this window's closed. So at 3, 4, 5, 26. 26, something happened. And I mean, this is again just to show you it doesn't happen like this. But so anyways, let's just say at 26 something happened. And this is kind of when you were stepping into the emotional expression of this throat chakra, which is your self-expression. It's how you walk your walk. It's how you talk your talk in life. And you were trying to do this to that community that surrounds you. It's not just your family anymore, but it's that next ring of people. It could be the people you work with. It could be some of the friends you keep. It's this outer ring of people that surround you, right? We all have an outer ring. They're not our best close friends. It's not our husband or our partners or our kids, our family. It's this next ring of people that we engage with. And so at this time, this person had some kind of interaction where they were with this outer ring, their peers, we'll say, the community that surrounds them, and they were supposed to, at that time, start to walk their walk, talk their talk, be able to not only speak, but be the self-expression that they so feel, and that's living the expression of their authentic self coming through to that community, because they were supposed to help to guide that community, right? And at that time, something happened, and they closed that window instead of stepping into that ability, that purpose, that potential that they had set out for themselves. And so they closed the window. So now what they're dealing with is this loss of self, grief, right? Grief is all about loss. And so grief can happen to us when we lose significant people in our life, and we go through the grief process. But grief is sadness, so there's a sadness in not stepping into this full potential. And so it manifests in this feeling of loss. And so, and we can hold this in so many different ways. And so that archetype, or the shadow side of that, comes in and becomes a seed that closed that window, that then throughout life, anytime you're supposed to be the full expression of yourself, to lead the people around you, maybe they were put into a manager position and it was time to be their authentic self and to not only do what they say, but say what they do and lead these people into a better kind of, so anytime you're put into a role, you become a clear channel, and if you're clearly living your authentic self, you can teach the people around you to live and step into their own authentic self. And so for whatever reason, this example here, this person closed that window, and so now anytime they're asked to lead through their own self-expression, there's something there that's a trigger for them, and they go into a perpetual cycle because that window's closed. Does that all make sense, how this is working? So then we go into throat chakra. And throat chakra's shadow side is deceit. So, where are we? 29? 35? Is this going to work out? Yeah, 22. Great, get the math right. Okay, so then as we get into throat chakra, voice, self-expression, and purification. So the voice, as a manifestation tool, is one of the clearest ways we can start to manifest what's coming through the higher channels. So the voice is a very easy way to be able to pull through what's coming through the mental field. So it goes spiritual, mental, and then vocal. So if we can clearly express everything without running it through an ego brain or a judging mind, and we can clearly express, it tends to manifest a reality that's a lot clearer for us. And so here, when deceit happens, it tends to throw blocks into this and make it not as easy to manifest clearly what we desire, or at least to see clearly what is manifesting outside of us. And then third eye chakra. So third eye chakra. Gosh, why am I not seeing clearly? And we're running over. So while I look for this is so funny. Any questions so far?
So when you talk about being blocked, if you're blocked at the root chakra, does that necessarily then stop the energy?
Everything else? So no, not. And so we're constantly. This energy is moving through us. Every vortice center is spinning and moving constantly. So although every chakra above and below, so let's say something's happening with sacral chakra, the energy, so you've all seen the kundalini, right? The spirals of energy as they work through us. So this is in a harmonized flow. We constantly have energy moving through each of these centers, creating an upward spin and a downward spin. of yin and yang energy. And so basically what happens is if something's blocked and we're given a choice to step into the next version, so as one energy moves up, it's a learning process. So we go from learning about family, we take it to the relationships, we then integrate it with ourself, and then it moves through the collective. So we are moving through these cycles, and then as it comes down, it's basically manifesting flow. So where this is a learning flow going up, this is a manifesting cycle coming down. And so as these two energies are moving through, if we got a block in our relationship sector and we're still manipulating people outside of us to try and get what we want, as this flow comes down and hits the block, when it's supposed to then manifest, we could then manifest something that's a lower vibration because we're manipulating another individual to get the energy we need instead of being in flow with all parties and allowing it to manifest how it should. So we might try and control this, which is another dysfunction, instead of being okay with how it's going to ground into this world for us. So it does affect, but just because one's blocked doesn't mean it has to, but it definitely affects. So as like I have a 7-week chakra workshop. It's all free if you want to dive in, but basically it takes you through each of these chakras, and it's 3 meditations a week, and what you do is you really ground into the energy of each, and it compounds. So if you do it root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra, if you move into each week, you're basically going to kind of understand how all of these chakras are interplaying. And typically what happens is if you're taking something big in your life that you want more clarity on, you'll see how the energy changed with just that one intention. Let's say I'm sick and I want to know why this happened or something, right? And I want more clarity on that. So I hold that as the space of what's coming through, and then I can see how each chakra had its hand, or where I chose to maybe block something instead of being fully okay with how this was going to interact in my life. And so does that make sense with how it might? So any other questions?
So what about, there are different oils that are associated with each chakra. So how do the oils work?
Yeah, so great question. That could be like a 2-hour workshop on itself. So chakras are vibration or frequency. You hear this term, right? So oils are vibration or frequency. And so crystals are frequency. And so that's why when we tend to get into chakras or understanding chakras, we tend to also get into other vibrational, physical things in this reality, because essential oils are a physical expression of vibration. Crystals are a physical expression of vibration. So when we talk about matching those oils, so people have gone through and said, rose essential oil, rose quartz and rose essential oil are going to be amazingly aligned to heart chakra. Really great vibrations to help get you into a balanced, clear heart chakra. But for me, when I'm working with vibration and frequency, it changes. Each individual is so unique, and like you just said, if I'm blocked here, is that going to block this and this? You could have something happening here that's got an aspect of this, an aspect of this, and and so when you want to work on this, you're not just working on sacral chakra as Joe, the essential oil guy, has decided it to be. So with these things, crystals, why am I drawn to shungite and you're drawn to rose quartz, right? And because I'm dealing possibly with something in my life that's got aspects of this, 2 of these, 3 of these, and so that shungite is really going to be the best. So whenever we're talking things that are physical in this world to help us work through this, essential oils especially, if you have the ability to be able to smell, essential oils will tell you by the way they smell in your body. So if the goal is to always be intentional. So what am I working on? And if you don't know what you're working on, it's, okay, what is in my field right now that's aligned to me that I should be working on? whatever's coming through right now, I'm going to piece this out. I'm going to smell essential oils and see what smells best and what's going to vibrate best to help basically facilitate the opening or clearing or more harmony and an alignment with what my highest potential is. Does that answer your question in a roundabout way? Okay. Okay, so the shadow side of the third eye chakra is illusion. So when the physical, the mind, the emotional, the intuition come together and create a spiritual expression, it's this clairvoyant, this ability to see clearly not only through the mind, which is what's considered the human component of the mental field, but the intuition, which is the higher self component of the mental field. So when those two things are expressing in harmony and balance, the spiritual lesson is this clairvoyance, or this ability to see clearly through human eyes and through spiritual eyes, and to be able to make that work in this reality. And so the shadow side block to that would be illusion. And then crown chakra, so the highest expression of being human, this dimensional reality here, the crown chakra, that which connects us to the all that is for us and everybody, is our high self, our purpose, and then this is the spiritual lesson here is transcendence, right? To feel transcended in any space and time. And the one thing that can block this full expression from being true for us is attachment. And so when my husband and I were working through our stuff together, this was the thing he hated the most, because I'd always tell him as I was moving through my process, I'd say, I have such detached acceptance for you. And he hated it because it's, in a very physical way. If I'm detached but accept you completely, I'm detaching from what you need to do in this life. I'm detaching from my expectation over you. I'm detaching from wanting anything for you, because that's not my journey. I can love you completely. I can support you. So I have complete acceptance over who you're choosing to be in this life. I can accept you completely at every stage, every breath, everything you choose to do, because I know you're a soul moving through your own experiences, having your own journey in this life. But I'm going to detach from you energetically so that everything you do doesn't trigger me in every sense of the word. So it's a hard detached acceptance, but so attachment to outcomes, attachment to how something should look. Attachment to me is such a narrowing. When you attach to something, you're attaching to a specific particle in its existence, and I'm going to attach to it so that I can see it more clearly. Whatever the attachment is, we're narrowing. And so if you think of spiritual enlightenment, to me this goes like this. When we attach, we're making something so fine, so infinite, so finite. And so that really narrows the limitless potential that everything could have. So did I give you more than you wanted coming in today? I know. This is like the past 20 years of my life. I'm sorry. Julie got sick today. And so I just kind of gave it to you. So any other questions that I can go over? Do you feel like you could relate this at all to how you walk and talk in this world? Yeah. A lot of information, yeah. This is how I communicate. Everybody communicates with this universe in their own ways. Astrology, right? I have no context for that. I can't even get into the angles and houses, but it's all the same. It's all the same stuff, just funneled through what resonates with us. Again, I told you I'm an artist, and so when I found my first chakra book, I fell in love because it was colorful. It's the only reason why I fell in love with chakras. And so as that engaged my authentic quality, I started to understand it more in a language that I could express to others and try to express to others. And so, astrology, sacred geometry, that's another one that I'll never get. Crystals, vibration, there's people who do Reiki, healing touch, all these things, aromatherapy, they're all a language on how to understand energy more clearly. And so to me, it's all about, the hardest thing I had to do was learn how to ground, how to be comfortable being human and okay with life outside of me. And that's, I think, the scariest thing when you start to go into a whole chakra-based practice is, if I'm going to be okay with everything in life, that first step you take into that, knowing that everything outside of me is really just a reflection of these core dimensional chakras, these core energy centers that I've been creating. So everything outside of me is just a reflection of everything I've created up until this point, right? And so that's why when we take our first step into this conscious world of wanting to actually be the ones creating our reality, there's a lot of stuff when we step in and say, I'm ready to face this. There's a lot of stuff that we've created unconsciously that we have to go on, all these patterns, all these blocks, right? Nobody wants to deal with fear, guilt, shame, grief, deceit, illusion, attachment, but that's when we start the first step into this kind of reality of knowing that we created everything outside of us. It's then having to go in and see where those windows, what windows are closed and why they're closed. And so I'll leave you and say, if you want to do that, the easiest way is to just start everything that happens to you that triggers you in some kind of emotion. So emotion is the best way to start to become present in this reality. So how many times are we triggered by emotion, whether it's good or bad, right? There's no good or bad to me with emotion. It's just emotion to get us to understand we're starting to manifest something. So when we start to feel emotion, happiness, sadness, grief, jealousy, anxiety, fear, any of these things that come up and triggers us instantly, I'm feeling sad. So anytime I get triggered by emotion, I stop and I say, why is there sadness in my field? I detach from the emotion immediately. And sometimes it'll take a day to realize I've been somewhat depressed or somewhat sad or in a bit of fear over a new project coming in. So anytime I'm triggered by that emotion and I start to realize I'm present to knowing that I'm feeling an emotion, I stop myself and I say, why is there guilt in my field right now? So I don't own it. I separate it from myself, and then I'll say, okay, well, I was made to feel guilty because my husband is cleaning the kitchen again for the third day in a row, and I'm watching TV. And so I go, okay, well, why am I feeling guilty over that? So what's guilt as an emotion? Guilt as an emotion is letting us know that something is in incongruence. We can only feel guilty when we're somewhat not in alignment with our highest purpose, right? We can only feel fear when something's out of our control and we need to make an immediate decision. We can only feel shame, something that's happening to us, when our authenticity has been questioned. So we, as an individual, might be shifting into a new person. The retrograde here, we might be changing, and our authentic qualities might be changing. So we're feeling shame over who we are because we either need to be stepping into that identity more, or maybe our identity's changed and we didn't catch it. So every time there's an emotion, an emotional trigger, it's triggering us to step and get more present into life and say, hey, we're feeling this emotionally. The next step is it's going to manifest physically, either in something that's happening outside of us to reflect to us what we've just manifested, or physically in our body also. Does that make sense? So that's how when I wrote my book about this, that's what I did. For a week straight, I'd say, okay, I'm root chakra, and I'd just step into every single moment and question every single thing that was coming to me, and I'd establish this is root chakra. I'm going to figure out what's going on in my root chakra. And every single thing that happened outside of me to me, I'd question it. And then I started to understand how these things were interplaying in my reality. So I have so much free content. Most of it's on Walden's website. At this point, I'm also the spa director here and wellness director. And I have, do you guys use apps at all? I have a free app. So it's called Chakra Deck. It's really cool. It's all this information in an oracle deck that you can get. It's all free, 100% free. And like a reading to see what's going on expression-wise, which one of the windows you're experiencing at any moment in time. So there's 77 total expressions when you add the shadow side, the hypo, the hyper, all the angelic stuff to it as well.